Yes.
Okay, good. So let's set some context, and then I'm going to go over some of the tools, and we'll go from there. All right, so as you may know, the Cloud Practitioner Essential, which is what we're covering today, this exam is primarily focused on people who are just kind of getting started with their journey with AWS. Now, obviously, the other providers all have their entry-level certifications, but Cloud Practitioner, which is this hexagon down here at the bottom, which I'll actually put a little arrow for, right? This one is the kind of the beginning. Everything else that you do after this, these are orders of magnitude, just a little bit more difficult. Just to mention this though, these top level exams and these purple exams, they are like level 8, 9, and 10 exams. So they are a lot harder, a lot bigger, and it is recommended that you actually kind of stair step your way up there. You are not required by AWS. You could leapfrog from Cloud Practitioner to any of the other exams if you wanted to. So just know, the other cool thing, by the way, for those of you who are obviously with me getting started on Cloud Practitioner, is that later on, if you decide that you want to actually go for like an associate's or professional exam, every time you take an associate's exam and you already have this Cloud Practitioner exam, it's going to automatically recertify you for the exam, but only if you already have it. If you don't have it, it's not going to give it to you. But if you have it and you take a higher level test, it's going to cascade down and extend all the certifications from down below. So if you then later decide to take Solutions Professional, it's going to refresh associates and it's going to give you Cloud Practitioner refresh as well. It will, again, not give you the exams if you don't already have them, but if you do have them, it will extend and recertify you at that level, which is actually pretty cool. So for a company like Booz Allen, which is actually very interested in certifications and in particular number, because it helps them maintain their partner status, this can be very useful. So just mentioning the added benefits, okay? Now, other things to note is that the Cloud Practitioner exam is primarily, like almost all of the other exams, a trivia exam, which is not to minimize it. Oh, sorry. Kendra, were you talking to us? Because I didn't realize I was offending people that quickly.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't on mute, but
no,
I wholeheartedly agree.
Oops, sorry. I think I accidentally muted you and that was a mistake. Please unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just agreeing that it's a trivia exam and I will go on mute now and swear to myself.
That's okay. I'm just not allowed to swear. You guys can swear all you want. So just remember it's all recorded. So don't worry. It'll only be shared with you. We won't be using it for any other purpose. So just know that it is a trivia exam now, and not to minimize that, because I make it sound like, oh, it's a trivia exam. So it's like, a bar game with there's no drinking involved. Not nearly as much fun. It actually is a 90-minute exam. It's 65 questions. You either have multiple single right answer or multiple 2 or 3 right answer. So they call that multiple choice and multiple response. So just know that you got 90 minutes to basically take 65 questions. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is that since this is the beginning exam, Amazon's just really looking for a few things from you. They want you to know the services and they want you to know some of their concepts around, like, the 6 advantages of cloud computing, the different cloud deployment models, all that stuff got covered in class, right? If you took a class with AWS with me or with anybody else. They do actually like you to have 6 months of exposure. Notice it didn't say production experience to the cloud. And of course, an understanding of kind of like Amazon's core use cases. Now, I'm going to walk specifically for how to sign up for the exam, including how to use like the vouchers that are provided. But just know 90 minutes, 65 questions. Amazon will throw in anywhere from 1 to 10 extra questions that don't count towards your score, just to kind of like verify and kind of like, does this question make sense? At this level, can they answer this question? So they do put test questions in there that don't count towards the total. But in general, 65 questions, 90 minutes. So that's what you got. By the way, just to note, with 90 minutes, just know that you have less than 2 minutes, usually 1.5 minutes to answer every question. So you really don't get to spend minutes and minutes analyzing questions. You got to get them within 90 seconds or less. Questions of any type? Chris, I think you raised your hand.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Eric.
So you said the voucher that's good for this year only, that it took to the end of the year or something like that?
Actually, to my knowledge, I was just told actually that the vouchers were extended until March.
Oh, great.
So yeah, so I think it was considered a little intense for people to have to take an exam between now and the next few weeks. And so you have until March. To be clear though, these are double shot vouchers. So if you wanted to go ahead and take a run at the exam and just get a feel for it and fail it, right? Let's be clear, we're being intentionally failing the exam. Then you could take it again if you wanted to, or if you want to take a serious run, see if you can pass it. And then if you feel like, well, that's a kind of a risky run, let me do some more study and take a more intense run, like serious run, you can do that as well. So these vouchers are double shot, which means you get 2 shots with the same voucher to take the exam.
Hey, Michael.
Okay. Oh,
I'm sorry. So if you take it and fail it, what percentage of questions repeat the next time you take it?
Yeah, there's no guarantee on that. You could have 0 repeat questions. You could have a couple, but in general, they have a bank of, I think, like 700 questions for 65. Okay. So, the chances of you getting a repeat are relatively low.
hey, Michael, can you hear me now?
I can, Chris. Go
Okay,
ahead.
cool. Those 10 questions, are they mixed in with everything else, or did they show up at the
end? They are mixed in, so you have no idea. They want you to take them seriously.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Stanley, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. Looks like the vouchers expire in July. Sorry, I think.
What happened there? What changed? Because I was told they were going to be expiring at the end of the year. We have to hurry up and get our double shot CNF before the end of the year.
Well, let me be clear, is that Booz does actually want you to get your certification before the end of the year, right? But it's it can be pretty unrealistic to expect someone to take 2 weeks, because let's just assume we're going to be humane for a second and not have you take it over Christmas. I think AWS came back and said, you know what, we're going to extend it into the next year.
The short answer is construction work. I have to.
No, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Short answer is, a lot of the authorized training partners like WebAge complain, saying that's just not enough time. So they did extend it to June 30th. And with that said, one of the things that Michael and I discussed at the end of today's session, for those that want to say, yeah, you know what, I got 2 chances to do this, and through June, let's schedule it at the end of the day. Michael will walk us through how to do it. You pick a date on your calendar that works. Take it the first time. If you pass, wonderful. If not, you'll have the experience and you can do it again. So that's going to be like the very end of the day, is those people that want to sign up now to get it on their calendar, because Michael will tell you the best thing about preparing for these exams is pick a date on your calendar, because that's the best way for you to prepare, to make sure you study and give yourself enough time to hit that deadline of taking the exam. So anyway.
Yeah, thank you for complaining. Thank you.
Yeah. Guys just said it's ridiculous. Nobody's going to be able to do it in time. So it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of others, but they extended it, which is a good thing.
Yeah, they listened. That was a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Good. Yeah. So that's what happened. So now, instead of it being a mad temple run where we're all going to cram for the certification, now you've got obviously extra 7 months. I would tell you though, it's probably better to do it now and get it kicked out as soon as you can. The longer you wait, the less likely you are to actually use the vouchers. Statistically, that's typically true. So the longer you have it in your possession, the less likely you are to use it. So I would definitely, go sooner rather than later, but maybe not, to use a phrase, kill yourself to get it done. Okay. So let's talk about what not killing yourself looks like in order to get this, move forward. Before I do that though, does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Other things to note as far as the logistics of the exam itself, other than just the context that it's the first of 11 exams you could take, right, is that there is an exam guide. So when you download the exam guide, let's see here. There we go. When you download the exam guide, just know that it will include the kind of code they use, which is the CLF C01. That isn't necessarily important because they don't change it that often, but they do change it. So, if you ever have to worry about which version you're looking at, you can always find it in the exam guide. Do note that they do recommend that, you have knowledge around cloud concepts, security and compliance, core service, and the economics of the cloud. So it is about security, billing, general services, and just understanding the technology. So here are things that you're not expected to do in this, because remember, it's a trivia exam, and this isn't about being a developer. This isn't about being a system operations person. They're not going to ask you things like migration, design, coding, troubleshooting. This is not a deeply technical exam. It's not meant to be. It's toe in the water. It's actually really meant for just people to have a baseline about what the AWS services do, what they can be used for, and the general advantages of using AWS. To get very specific, and here's, by the way, more about the multiple choice and response. They've upped it to 15 unscored questions. So there's actually now 15. So it could grow to 80, actually. These unscored questions, by the way, are not identified on the exam. So that confirms what I was just saying a few minutes ago. Do note that in order to pass, the minimum passing score is 100, right? So they say that. Just be aware that sometimes the score is a little bit more depending on who's taken the exam recently. But at a minimum, you have to get a 70%. You might need a 75, a 750, 760 in order to pass. In general, our target is that we're shooting for you to get 800s and above.
Hey, Mike, does it include the 700? Include those 15 unscored? Well, all right, never mind. Sorry, I'm sleeping.
No, that's okay. You just clarified it for a bunch of other people too, right? They are unscored. Yeah, so they don't count. Okay. Your score report may contain a classification at each section level, right? But just to say this, I've usually only seen that at the end of the exam. Don't usually see that in the score report they give you at, like in your certification site, which we're about to see in a second. Okay. So each section of the exam has specific weighting. So some sections have more questions than others, right? So here's the thing that you want to know. In general, a third of the exam is going to be about the services and technology of AWS. A third. So more questions about technology and services of AWS. Another 25% is going to relate to general cloud concepts, which includes advantages and things like, is it infrastructure as a service? Is it platform as a service? Or is it, software as a service? Or is it an on-premise, an all cloud, also known as, public cloud, right? Or just cloud? Or is it a hybrid model where it has some of on-premise, which is also known as private cloud, or some of cloud, which is also known as public cloud, right? So they're going to ask you general questions. So 25% of piece is going to be about security and general cloud concepts. A third is going to be about AWS services. And the remaining sixth or so that's left is really just about billing and pricing. Now, you might ask me, but why, Michael, do they call out security and billing, but the other things are kind of general? And the reason for that is that pretty much everything you configure or start in AWS is going to have a security implication and or a billing implication. So, just know. And people will be like, well, how come I don't have to pay for bandwidth in my own data center? It's like, well, you do, but you probably don't see that's the bill. So just know that, the problem with AWS is it really makes all of your billing units, like, network bandwidth and DNS and all this stuff available for you to see. But also know that the problem with AWS is that it makes all your billing units available to see. Like, it's awesome, but it's a pro and a con, right? Because you probably didn't have visibility into that before. So a sixth on billing and pricing, 25% on general cloud concepts and security, a third on the general technology of AWS. Now, if you want to know, like, hey, Michael, what do you mean by cloud concepts? Well, here you go. So specifically being able to define the benefits of AWS related to all of these kind of like concepts, the ilities, right? Security, agility, elasticity, high availability, like all the stuff, scalability, people like rave about, right? There's a few things there that are not ilities, like economies of scale and global reach. And then, how the cloud allows you to focus on business value. That's a part of it as well. And then there's aspects of the cloud economics, including CapEx versus OpEx, how to, reduce costs, which, by the way, for AWS, it's not about reducing just dollar costs. It's also reducing operational costs. The different cloud architecture design principles, like designing for failure and decoupling components and elasticity and think parallel. It would not hurt you to just put your eyeballs on this entire list, which means read it, of course. And then domain 2 is about the shared responsibility model. who's responsible for securing infrastructure? Is it them or is it the customer, right? And then, you know, where can you find compliance information? What are the services that will aid in auditing and reporting? You know, like what is the concept of least privileged access? They're going to repeatedly ask you to strive for these concepts. How do I give people just enough permissions to do the things they need to do and no more? How do I find out if something is HIPAA compliant or not HIPAA compliant, right? And then there's some more about the management capabilities, which all revolves around access to your AWS account. This is the whole security section. And then a few more things about firewalls, products in the marketplace, stuff like that. It sounds like a lot, but just to say this, if you're really if you've already taken the Cloud Practitioners class, which I believe most of you have, then all you really need to do is just focus on the practice exams, frankly. And if you are someone who really learns things through hands-on, we're going to show you how to get some hands-on experience if you really want to drive a concept into your brain. Because you're like, I got to stop reading. I got to actually do some of this stuff. We're going to show you that. Okay. Questions before I go on to the last two domains, the general technology and the billing domain? Okay. Be forewarned, I might mute you if you're unmuted. You can unmute yourself at any time, just to minimize noise on the line. So you can unmute yourself as you see fit. Okay, technology. So first of all, here's the different kind of cloud deployment models, which oddly enough is not under concepts. It's actually here. So I misstated that earlier. It's kind of weird because I thought it was actually in the other section as well. And then your connectivity options, because AWS at the end of the day is on-demand IT resources provided over the internet. So if you're not going to use the internet, what are you going to use to connect to these resources? VPN, direct connect. VPN uses the internet, by the way, but direct connect, right, which is a physical wire between you and Amazon's data center. And then knowing the global infrastructure, understanding the core services, but core services is a pretty broad rubric. So what are we talking about? So basically compute, storage, network, and database. That's what Amazon wants you to know for Cloud Practitioner. Things like, EC2 or ECS, load balancers, all the different storage services. You don't need to know these at a deep level. You just need to know what they do and some general idea of their use cases. That's it. Now, it might feel like a lot right now, but that's because we haven't started training yet. Right now, this is just a bunch of words on paper, right? Same with networking services, like understanding how networks work inside of AWS, the different database services, of which, just to say, there's only 3: RDS, DynamoDB, and Redshift. Now, don't get me wrong, there's like 12 database services out on AWS, but for our purposes, for Cloud Practitioner, you only really need to understand 3 at a very superficial level. That's it. And then, just to say this one always weirds me out, but it's true every time. How do you understand the different levels of support inside of AWS? Because they've got basic, developer, business, and enterprise. I think at reInvent, I just saw them announce another one, which is in between business and enterprise, but we're not going to talk about it because it's not on the exam. And then billing and pricing. So you do actually have to understand the 6 possible licensing models for EC2 from a cost perspective. You do need to know the storage classes for S3. You have to have a general idea of Cost Explorer and all that stuff. But again, I think when I say that you should know, the thing you should take away from this is you just need to take the practice exams. If you've already taken the class, you got about 60 or 80% of the knowledge. The practice exams are just going to fill in the gaps, and they're going to train you to answer the questions so that when you take the exam, you're ready to go. Don't get me wrong, the practice questions are not an exact copy of what you're going to see on the exam. And they shouldn't be. That would, quite frankly, would be a little weird. Wouldn't be a test at that point in time, right? But all this stuff that we're talking about, it's all going to be covered in the practice exam. This is just so you can put some structure to it if you want to. Okay. There's the appendix, right? So things like the command line interface and marketplace and stuff like that will show up as well. And here's some additional services that might be referenced. Lambda. This is in a sense, a full list of the services that could show up in the exam, right? It's a lot. But again, practice exams, don't worry about this. Any questions about the exam guide, the weighting, the 4 domains that are covered inside as far as billing, general cloud concepts, security, and AWS technology. All right, here's a link to the certification just for your own giggles, right? In case you just need it for your own self. Obviously, you can find it just as easy as I did. Just type in AWS certifications, go to the certification page, click on Cloud Practitioner. There you are. Okay. All right, so enough shenanigans with the exam and its logistics. Let's take a moment and just like talk about sign up for a second. So if you're in the Cloud Practitioner link where we were before, so let's say you're here at this pretty little picture, you just click on Cloud Practitioner, and then what happens is you click on schedule an exam. Now, I'm going to click on sign in. Unless you know for a fact that you are part of the APN team at Booz Allen, and you know what I'm talking about, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the rest of us are all going to sign in on the left-hand side, right? But you might be an APN partner. You might be part of that team. I'd be shocked if you were. But most of us are going to be logging in on this left-hand side. And you're actually going to use an Amazon account, not an AWS account. So we click on sign in. And what happens is it's going to immediately say, hey, do you want to use your Amazon account to log in? And I happen to have a bunch of Amazon accounts. So I use one that I have designed just for this purpose. And you sign in. Now, you can create one if you don't have one. But most of you have an Amazon account. You can just use that, right? Or you can use the bah.com email address. Just be careful. You cannot create an AWS account with your bah.com email, but that's not what that was doing. That was actually an Amazon account that it was creating. I know that sounds weird, but it's actually two different things. So if you're in doubt, just use your personal email address. If you're worried about it, just use your personal email. It'll be fine. It's going to just be associated with you, and it's totally fine if it does that. Now, once you log in, you can actually go to your account, and what's going to happen is it's going to redirect you to a site called Certification Metrics. Apparently, Pearson VUE is having some issues with connectivity. By the way, notice this, by the way, all the practice products are now available through AWS Skill Builder. We're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm actually going to open that up for just a minute. All right. So this is the Cert Metrics site. So when you actually like want to register for an exam, or you get your benefits and your digital badges, this all occurs here. So for example, you can go in and take a look at your profile, which includes, you know, things like my personal, address if you want to swap me for something. Exam registration. So notice I have exams already signed up for, one on the 10th and one on the 17th. I'm probably going to end up moving some of those around, maybe a little bit. The history of exams, right, that you've taken. Any achieved certifications, like if you've made certifications, including ones that have expired, and then any benefits that you have, all these have been used. So, feel free to steal a token or two. But note, by the way, that one of the things you do get for passing Cloud Practitioner is you do get a 50% discount on your next few exams. So that's actually pretty nice at the $150, $300 level, assuming that you're not getting vouchers, right? And then notice also you get free practice exams as well. So, and you get access to the store, which has some of the most horrible swag I've ever seen in the history of branding. So if you really like bad swag, you can go over there and take a look at some of the horrible swag that AWS has. I really wish they would improve that, actually. They could really come up with some cool stuff, right? And then digital badges. So once you actually pass an exam, they're going to allow you to do things like put digital badges on your signature. So if you've ever gotten an email from me, it says click here if you want to see all my certifications, right? Including my Amazon authorized instructor certification. Yes, Chris, ask away.
I might be jumping ahead, but I know you said something about after passing the exam, you get some free exam practice exams or whatever. I know from past meetings with you about stuff like this. Are those relevant exams though? I mean, like are they pretty good exams?
No, I do not actually recommend you use those practice exams, which is why we usually refer you to Tutorial Dojo. So you're right to ask, because I refrain from using my normal vernacular of like dumpster fire and not great and would never
Okay.
use them. But that does kind of apply. And I'm just kidding. They're actually not super horrible. They're just not as good as John's exams, which is the ones we use from Tutorials Dojo. So
Okay,
there's nothing wrong with the AWS practice. They're just not as awesome as the Tutorials Dojo exams, which
Yeah.
we're going to talk about here in a bit.
I got another question for you on top of that though. What's the guy's name from Udemy? Stefan?
Stefan Merrick.
Stefan? Yeah. I mean, what's your opinion about his exams and by chance?
His content's good. I would say that, John just has the best, right? John has like
No. I'm not going to dispute that. I'm just curious about what your feelings are about Stefan. And I know y'all don't want to sell and stuff, but I mean I'm just trying to
I have Stefan's classes. Like I have Stefan's classes in my like listing for Udemy, so I think he's good actually.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you.
My only catch with him is that his exams questions in particular are not necessarily as close as the ones that you find, but the content that he has generated is pretty good as far as coverage.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. No. I don't feel the need to defend John. It's okay. There are actually other good, practice exams out there. But John, we just try to stick with the guy that we think is the best. So that's all.
Absolutely.
And when John's not the best, unfortunately, we might switch over to somebody else. John just has to keep his standards up. Okay, so you're here, and you're like, "That's great, Michael. Thank you for showing the certification site. I'm not really sure I'm going to use that, but maybe you will." So here we are, exam registration, which is the whole reason we actually came into this site, is we wanted to register for an exam. So, because that's what we clicked on, right? With schedule new exam button. Now, if you scroll down, you're going to see at the bottom here, all of the eligible exams that you could take, right? So notice that they're broken out into foundational, associates, professional, and then you have specialty exams. You can take any of these exams you want without preamble, right? Just know, oh, hold on. There's an SAP on AWS specialty beta exam. That's a new thing. I haven't really noticed that before. Probably been there since November, according to that date, but I hadn't seen it. Anyway, so just know for our purposes, we're going to take Cloud Practitioner, right? So that's the top one. I would, as a general rule of thumb, the vouchers for Pearson VUE. So you're going to use Pearson VUE to sign up. It's going to log you into Pearson VUE's website. So it's going to force a login attempt. And then it's going to say, hey, are you going to take it at the test center or are you going to take it at home? Now, here's my general thought, just to share this, is that I want all of you to be as safe and as comfortable as possible. Do not do anything that puts you and your family at risk. I am not advocating anything that goes against that, especially with Omicron kind of coming out. I got a bunch of friends who work for the CDC, right? But just to say this is that being said, because I definitely want you to stay as safe as possible and not take any unnecessary risks, taking it at a test center is a much easier experience than taking it at home. Now, I just said that, and most of us are going to take it at home. So I'm going to give you some of the preparation caveats. But just so you know, when you take it at the test center, it is so much quicker and easier because you're not going to get interrupted. You don't have to worry about taking care of the security of the space. It's just a different thing. Okay. So let's say that we're going to take it online, right? Because we're interested in that. And Gregory, I saw your email. I'm going to get back to you here in just a second. Chris, did you have another question?
Man, I'm taking it on Friday, so that I'm super nervous. That's the reason why I got a lot of questions.
No, you can ask all the questions you want.
All right. So I have a thing, that increases my efficiency. And everyone is different, whatever. But I like to let the browser read the question for me. I don't know. I was told that I guess it's some kind of string. It's some kind of install UI that you have to install, I guess. So it may not include some kind of feature like that. But I just found it makes it easier for me to get through the exam quicker. That's all. I mean, I guess would that be something that would be like a no or something? I mean,
Yeah, they're not going to allow that. Okay. They acoustically fingerprint the room at levels both above and below human hearing. So they're not gonna let you generate any sound. I had a dog running around one time with a neck collar. That drove them insane. So You know,
Cool.
I had a
Thanks.
teenager burst in one time. So any generated sounds that they're not like, that's going to be like reading the questions, they're not going to support. So you can't even talk to yourself, just so you know.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, somebody told me that too. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So if you cover your mouth or talk to yourself, they're going to give you a warning and then another warning and then you're done. So yeah, so unfortunately they're not going to do that because you know, imagine the difficulty of trying to like just like make sure that things are secure in an environment they can't see, right? Oh no, Kendra, you could swear at them. I just can't promise there won't be any consequences. That I don't have anything for that. So just know that if you're running it at home, you absolutely have to run the system test. And if you cannot use your Booz computer, that might be a step in the right direction. I'm not saying that Zscaler is going to cause you any problems, but I could be saying that Zscaler might cause you problems. Okay. So just test that thoroughly if you want to do it. It would be better if you just maybe used another computer. And it does need to be another computer. It can be a Mac. I think it runs on Linux, maybe not, but it might be Windows or Mac, but it's all in there in the system test. But you just use that. Okay. Now, here's the catch about the space. You have to clear your desk down to one monitor. There can be nothing on your desk other than a keyboard and mouse. And you have to take pictures of all four sides of your desk. So if you're up against a window, like most sane people, you're going to have to pull your desk away in order to take a picture of the other side. This is why I'm advocating typically that if you're comfortable with it, just go to a testing center. If you're not, then grab a laptop. Hey, look, here's the Dell. Grab a laptop, grab a long network cable because you don't want to be wireless for this. Kick everybody out of the house, or at least out of the room. Make sure none of them decide to game or simultaneously stream on 3 TVs 4K. That happened. And just like make sure nobody interrupts you, because if you get interrupted more than 2 or 3 times, they're gonna cut the test off, right? You're gonna fail, and you know you have 2-shot vouchers, so you'll be fine. So I usually just go out to my dining room table, pull the dining room table away from the wall, plug my power cable and my network cable in, run it on a laptop, and just be done with the whole thing. And then I kick everybody out of the house and tell them not to show up for 3 hours, which is usually fun. So you can be on Wi-Fi, Victoria, but just know that it's probably better for you to have a wired connection. But it's not bandwidth intensive. It's just a little bit more reliable. So you can use Wi-Fi if that's your only option. Just make sure it's solid Wi-Fi, because if you get disconnected, you're gonna have to reconnect. They're gonna reaffirm. You're gonna lose precious time. So
solid Wi-Fi equals cable.
yeah, if you have a cable, there's not gonna be any issue. Exactly. It's an interesting way to put it. If you want the most solid Wi-Fi available, use a cable. I'm gonna use that actually. Do note that, so other than the testing space, which has to be clear and you have to take pictures of all 4 sides and you want solid Wi-Fi, that there are certain photo IDs that are accepted, like IDs that cannot be photocopied, like certain military IDs, you can't use those. But, you know, passport, green card, you know, driver's license, all that's expected. You do have to show up about 20 or 30 minutes before your appointment. So it's really not 90 minutes. That's kind of a double negative. It's really not 90. It's really 120 minutes. Because the first time in particular, you got to show up. You can have your phone with you when you first show up, but you got to give your phone up, right? With the data center, with the testing center, no. You can literally just show up 5 minutes before, and they'll have you put all your stuff in a locker, sign a couple of waivers giving away your firstborn, and then you can just walk into the testing center, right? Yeah. So hope you're not too attached to your kids. So then at home, you can come up with your phone when you first do it. And then once you're done, they're going to ask you to set all electronics aside. You can't wear a watch. They're going to ask you to take off necklaces. They're going to have you hold your glasses out and do this, you know, with it. Like, can we see? Right? Just so you're aware. So it's a process. Now, once you've determined that you're fit enough to actually do this, they're going to ask you what your preferred written language is for the exam. Notice they don't say that. And notice there's a lot of options, actually. So, you know, pick your language of choice. And then for some reason, they're going to stop here and ask you if you've chosen the right exam and you're willing to pay the price. And then you say next to that. And then you're going to do the giving away of, you know, first, second, and third born children. So including, by the way, an agreement to a facial comparison policy, because they will actually compare your ID to a known public confirmation database. They will also list acceptable identification, which is already covered in the previous section. And they're going to talk about like things you need to do under exam day, like go to your Pearson VUE exams, right? You can reschedule, you cannot reschedule less than 24 hours prior to your appointment. You can only reschedule 2 times. The third time, they're going to ask you to cancel and schedule anew. 24 hours, right? Be aware, by the way, that when you go up to the next level of exams, it's 48 hours. It's not 24 hours. So make sure you're paying attention. And let's see. Here's some other fun facts about doing it at home, because you can actually take a break in the testing center. You cannot take a break. So one of my favorite things to do is to just drink a lot of diuretics right before I go into a break, because you're not going to get to leave. You can't take a break. You actually can't stand up technically, right? Actually, where does it say that? There was like a section where it's like, you really can't stand up or leave your workstation for any reason. So I know it sounds rough, but think of that as part of taking the exam, right? Is you get to go through the rigors of the exam. Mumbling or speaking out loud is not permitted. So no auditory inference of any type. There's no scratch paper or notes. No food or beverage or personal products can be within reach. And you must follow all instructions. Mobile phones, watches, cameras, bags, briefcase, purses, notes. You literally cannot have access to any personal items. So, yeah. All right. Does this sound like fun yet? You're like, Jesus, first we went through this exam guide and now we're overwhelmed with the sheer amount of material we got to cover. And now you're telling me I got to go through boot camp to get this working. It's going to be fun. You're going to like it. All right. Notice that your verbal languages are Japanese and English. I don't know why they are not other options, but that's what it is. Let's see, Justin, do they have testing center available? Because it sounds like a nightmare with 4 teenagers in my house. Justin, I agree, actually. Well, I mean, teenagers do nothing but push boundaries, so I imagine that wouldn't necessarily go over very well. I would definitely go to a testing center. Okay, so let's say that you were interested in taking it on Saturday. By the way, they are having problems, Justin, that was on the first page. They are having problems at Pearson VUE right now, which is a rarity. That's the first time I've seen that in a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if the site was down. Okay, so this is Saturday. I think if we switch it to Friday, it would probably get even weirder, huh? Let's see. Let's see about Friday. So here are the options for in a 24-hour set for Friday afternoon. So, yeah. And then, I mean, that's only a few days away. So, just to say this general strategy, pick a time where you're awake, like without coffee. So like maybe you've had your coffee at 8 and you're really awake at 10 o'clock, so maybe you would actually go for 10 a.m. But let's say, instead we want 1 o'clock. That's our favorite time. And they're like, hey, by the way, Forrester, you already have an exam. You can't just schedule that. So I'm going to switch over to Saturday. All right, so let's switch over to, let's say I want to do 4 on Saturday. So I'm doing 1600, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So then they're going to ask you, they're going to say, hey, is this what you wanted? And is this the appointment time that you want? And then is this the cost that you're willing to pay? Now, you might come to this point and say, Michael, when do I put the voucher in? Well, when you hit proceed to checkout, this is after you've agreed to everything. That's literally the first thing you're going to see is the voucher promotion code. So you just paste the voucher in here and click apply. If I remember correctly, all of the detailed information as far as the card details and all that, I think that all goes away. If I remember correctly, I think your address information remains, because if they need to send you swag or a certificate or whatever, they'll do that. They don't typically mark it to you. And then once you hit in the promo code or whatnot and you hit on next, it'll ask you one more time for confirmation. You hit confirm. And then what it's going to do is it's immediately going to send you a bunch of emails, and it's going to send you emails both 24 hours the day of and a couple of days before. So you're going to get plenty of reminder emails to take your exam. Okay. So don't worry. And you also have the option to add it to your calendar at that point in time. Highly recommended that you do that as well, or just go ahead and stick it on your calendar now. So just remember, this voucher section right here is where you're going to stick in your voucher code that you already have access to. So, any questions about that process thus far?
So is the exam not quote unquote open book? Like if I have notes on my computer in a text file, I can't access that during the exam?
You cannot access any notes of any type or any personal item.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
What will happen, by the way, when it downloads the software onto your system, it'll blow up full screen and it'll lock you out of anything. So even if you try to get to something on your computer, it will stop you, or it'll say, hey, do you want to do that? And then if you do, you're out of the exam. Yeah, so not open book. Well, you know what these other buttons do over here. That's what we do. Oh, it's a little dashboard, and we'll leave this page. Interesting. Oh, you can see like receipts and stuff. Oh, we can view score reports. I didn't know this stuff was here, actually. I usually look at the score reports over on the AWS site because they all get like kind of backpedaled over there. So anyway, that's pretty much for all the like logistics here for the course. What I'm going to do is that we will be taking a break at 3 o'clock or thereabouts, like plus or minus 10 minutes. My recommendation is that if you really want to commit to doing this, is that you sign up before we leave at the end of the day, maybe over one of the breaks, because the break will be about 20 minutes long. So it's going to give you some time to set it up. But I would 100% put a date underneath it and kind of move the date if you have to, but go ahead and commit to it, because there's nothing more motivating than knowing that you're about to take an exam and you have a date and you really can't shift it, right? So good. All right. So that's all the logistics there around the exam. Any other relevant insights, questions about either the certification itself or signing up for the actual certification exam?
I have a question about the voucher. Do we get that in the email, or how do we view that? I don't.
Oh, so you should get an email, right? That should have the voucher code in it. Have you not received it yet, Eric?
It would have come to my Booz Allen email, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
but check your junk mail, please.
Yeah, I don't check that as often as I should, so I'll be checking it after this class, and I'll check the spam folder.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yeah, and just know, you can email support@WebAge Solutions or talk to me or Greg Wagner if you need to facilitation. Greg in general will facilitate that for you, but
Okay.
just know you can reach out to any of us and we'll redirect you to the right person.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, should have it. Okay. One other thing to just mention is that if you took the class and ignore the sheer volume of books that you're about to see, just ignore that for a second. You should have gotten access to bookshelf.vitalsource.com, this particular little URL, and that I'm about to post in the chat. That should have given you student access, right, to the Cloud Practitioner Essentials like student guide. Now, obviously, I get a bunch of here in like a bunch of different languages, and you're probably going, Michael, that's ridiculous. But just know that if you took the class, you also have access to the original source material for Cloud Practitioner. So you can always go in and look at your student guides, and the slides that the presenter showed you, they will show up in Bookshelf. Now, I suspect there's some kind of internet problem because Bookshelf usually loads really quickly, but it's not in this.
Are you connected with a cable?
I am actually, Victoria. I am. I'm always connected with cables. I don't try not to use Wi-Fi because then that's how the aliens like kind of get in your brain. I'm actually kidding. That could be serious though. So just know that the URL, when it normally works, actually shows you all the material. Well, there it is. That took way longer than usual. That you covered in class. So you, by the way, can actually make it like fit the height of your page. So you don't have to sit there and kind of squint at what's happening. And this covers all the stuff. Like if you need to deep dive more into the global infrastructure, note that it will include Amazon's notes about the topics in question. So won't necessarily be what you saw in class, but it will give you AWS relevant details. So if you're missing the coffee shop stories, well, they're all right here for you. Okay. That's one other option, by the way, for source material for around Cloud Practitioner Essentials. The other one is AWS used to have a site called aws.training. It's still kind of here, but they're definitely phasing it out. And so note that the new site is called Skill Builder. And it might be down. Explore.skillbuilder.aws. It's usually out of this URL. It looks indeed like something's not working. Interesting. Anyway, inside Skill Builder, once you log in, you can search for Cloud Practitioner Essentials, and it will actually give you a digital version of the class. It's not exactly the same. Oh, CloudFront's having a 504. We love that. What it will do is it will actually literally give you a digital version of the class for you to see. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the instructor-led class, and it's not even like the student material, but it's got little video segments in there that will cover like the same sections that you see in the student guide. So if you need like videos or a little bit more interactive site, the Skill Builder site, you can actually search for AWS Cloud Practitioner Essentials. We will send the email out with the video playlist on it for this and the other material. We'll make sure that you have a link to Skill Builder that actually works at the time that I send it. Yeah, interesting, they're down. By the way, status.aws. Right? Ooh, look at that. Oh man, and I gotta just tell you this, if US East, by the way, which is one of the core public data centers, like it was the first launched by AWS, is having issues, there's a bunch of services that have to route through US East 1 in order to function. So it affects actually a lot of other regions. So including the management console, the support center, like a bunch of things. So, all right. We haven't had really an outage with AWS in a second that I've seen. So this is the first time I've seen degraded to like an API. Okay, enough of that. Let's see. So we talked about the student guide, which you have access to. We talked about Skill Builder, which has the full course on there. And the only other thing that's a great source of material if you need to deep dive into a topic, let's say you don't know anything about CloudFront because you just saw me looking at CloudFront here because of the error. One other place that you can look is that AWS has these ramp up guides. Now we provide you with certification focused simplified study guides that are much more honed in and focused than these are. When I say we, I mean web-based solutions with Booz. But just know that they do have these really big industry standard ramp up guides that you can look at if you need to deep dive on a technology or get into something. So just know that these are out here. They're much bigger than the simplified guides that we gave you, so that they could be a little bit of overtraining. But just know, like, if you're like, hey, Michael, I need to dive in more into Cloud Practitioner, and I really don't know enough about IAM, can I get more like exposure or experience to IAM? And so in this particular case, this guide is a couple pages long, and it will walk you through the various kind of like ramp up steps that you want to take to understand cloud computing, right? By the way, here's the class. So see the class here and notice that there's a digital version and a classroom training version. And then shared responsibility model, AWS pricing, more about the simple storage service. If you need the digital training on IAM, it's listed here, right? And then, identity access, block store, CloudFront, how to host a website. In other words, everything you need to kind of get prepped for the Cloud Practitioner exam. This is another location where you can get like very specific. If you're like, man, I keep missing these questions on CloudFront. Well, you can do a self-paced lab on CloudFront, which I'm going to show you more about that in a second. And you can like dump into like any of the like tooling that's here on CloudFront to learn more about it as well. Okay. So these links will be sent to you usually within the next 24 hours. So you have access to them. But there's 3 places you can get content to deepen into the Cloud Practitioner Essentials area. Matt, you said on VitalSource, do we need to sign up or was an account created for us? So Matt, you should have gotten an email and it usually ends in, it usually is like no reply at gilmore.ca.
Okay, I'll check.
Yeah. But Matt, if you were part of the Tech Excellence class,
Right.
like if you were doing like the cloud engineering class, you wouldn't have gotten an invitation to take that class. So that's a good qualification. If you took Tech Excellence, which I think you did, right? Is
Yeah, I
that
did.
yeah? Then you wouldn't have gotten access to the student guide for Cloud Practitioner. So even though you took the
Okay.
class with me, it was kind of an unofficial delivery. So you just got the fundamentals, right, of AWS. That's why I offer you 3 ways to get the material, because you might not have access to all 3.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Chris? Chris, you're still on mute if you're talking.
Oh, so, jeez, man, today is just a winner for me.
It's Friday. It's okay.
I wish I would have already taken the test. Oh, actually, I'll be taking it right now. Anyway, so systems operations on AWS. I don't have. I could have sworn we took the cloud practitioner on that Friday. It was a Friday, many Fridays ago. Anyway, through you guys, but I don't. What I have in my vital source is something called systems operations on the AWS.
Right. So if you took the Tech Excellence class, you don't have access to Cloud Practitioner. That's why I'm offering you the Skill Builder and other things,
Gotcha.
right? That's what
Okay.
Matt was just asking.
Oh,
But you definitely took the System Operations class,
yeah.
right? So that was actually the full-blown official class from AWS. And so you've got access to that student guide. But
Okay.
don't worry, the material is actually out there on Skill Builder, and you can actually use the ramp up guide to step up as well. So
Okay. All right.
yeah. Sorry, that was a little like bait and switch, wasn't it? It's like, oh, you all have access to Cloud Practitioner Essentials. Yeah, no. If you took Tech Excellence, it wasn't included. Okay. So just know that the Cloud Practitioner Ramp Up Guide is here. Skill Builder has access to the class. And if you took the official class, you would have gotten an email months and months ago when you took it saying that you had access to the Cloud Practitioner Essentials student guide. A lot of the material is duplicated between the 3, so you should be fine. Now, this is all, by the way, training for the most part with some digital labs. So for those of you who need to actually put your hands on something to drive it deeper, which isn't required for Cloud Practitioner, but that's just the way you learn, just know that being part of like a Booz Allen employee, you actually get access to these self-paced labs. Oof, that is big, actually. Did it just switch context on me? It did, didn't it? Anyway, if you go to amazon.quicklabs.com, which I know some of you have seen before, especially if you were in Tech Excellence with me, Cloud Engineering. This URL, if you sign up as a Booz employee with your Booz Allen email address, not the number, for last name _ first name, then you will get access to any of the labs that are here. Now, I won't necessarily say that it's unlimited, but it actually is pretty fairly unlimited. So feel free to come in here and, oh wait, this is public site. Sign up for an account if you don't have one. And as long as you have taken a class with us and you're like, have the bah.com email address, suffix, you're going to get access to credits, right? In order to like drive this. And so you'll see that I have 8 credits. Don't panic, by the way, if you see your credits change and you haven't taken any labs. You share it with a bunch of other Booz employees, so you're going to see them go up and down. We're really good about making sure that credits don't run out, but if they do happen to run out, just email us and we'll make sure that like things get refreshed, right? But if you come out here and you're like, I don't really understand the Elastic file system, you can come out here and take a lab. It'll cost you 1 credit. That's $1. Some of these things are free. You want to learn more about code commit, you can do that as well. Really, none of this is required for Cloud Practitioner, but just if you need to drive it into your brain by putting your hands on it, these are the options. Okay. Hold on 1 second, Chris. Stanley, so for Tutorials Dojo, do we have to pay again for the exam prep course or do we pay ourselves? Sounds like you're asking like, are you getting the Tutorials Dojo included? Yes, the answer is yes. So just know that if you want to access Stanley in the Basecamp, there's actually instructions for how to do it. Bottom line is I'll show you this here in a second, but you just go to Tutorials Dojo and just create an account with the same thing that you use for this one. So use your last name _ first name @bah.com. And what will happen is that within about 24 hours, you'll get an email that says, hey, you're now registered. but you have to create your own account both on amazon.quicklabs.com and on portal.tutorialsdojos.com because we don't have access to that. Yeah. Cool. So just know you want hands-on experience, you can get in here. These AWS accounts are created just for the lifetime of the lab. So if you want to get more hands-on, you can. Okay. Questions about the hands-on lab exposure here? Good. All right, let's see here. All right, here we go. So let's talk last but not least about Tutorials Dojo. So I'm going to go over the logistics of Tutorials Dojo. I'm going to pause or stop the recording, and then we're going to do some practice exam questions. And then basically we're just going to work out together for a couple hours. I know it's going to be tough. It's going to be a little bit of fun, not a lot of fun. I mean, even I can't make it that fun, but we're going to learn something. And if you're having an exam coming up on Thursday, Friday, next week, whatever, you're going to be basically working out with us. We're going to get ready for it. Okay. We're going to deconstruct the questions, give you some strategies. You're going to love it. Okay. So if you're here logistically, you just click on TD Portal login, and the URL, by the way, is just tutorialsdojos.com. So here it is. Once you come up here and you create an account using your bah.com email address, what will happen is that you'll get an email usually within 24 hours that says, hey, you now have access to Cloud Practitioner's Essentials. Then you click on My Courses, and unlike all the insanity that you see here, you'll at least have one that says, hey, Cloud Practitioner Essentials practice exams. Click into this. And then what will happen is it'll say, hey, you're enrolled in the course. By the way, you get to keep this course for 3 years. So when your certification starts to expire and you need to recertify, you can just do it right before your certification expires. In other words, you can just kind of keep yourself in lockstep. You can actually use it right before it goes out. So you get 2 exam practices. John, by the way, is constantly, and his team are constantly updating this thing. So you don't have to worry about it being out of step with the latest Cloud Practitioner exam in 2 years. It's going to stay that, like it's going to stay that way. Oh, Stanley, I didn't even see your question. Sorry. I just was talking about it. The course is constantly refreshed. Usually at a minimum, once a quarter, John will update it to match whatever the latest questions are. Now you see there's a number of sections here. There's time mode, review mode, section-based mode, final test. There's only one section that we care about for our purposes. That's review mode. That's it. Don't really care about the rest of them. You can use section-based. If it has topic-based, which this one doesn't, you could use that as well. But for our purposes, the only thing we really care about is the review mode section. Now, if we open this puppy up, inside there are 5 sets of Cloud Practitioner questions that you could practice against. For exam purposes, especially if your exam is on Friday, the only thing you're going to do is you're not going to go on Skill Builder and look at all the stuff for Cloud Practitioner. You're not going to go on to the ramp up guide and try to deepen your experience. You're not going to go on amazon.quicklabs.com and get some hands-on experience. You're really not going to do that. What you're going to do, and this is our recommendation, is that you pick one of these sets of questions and you keep going through the same set until you can pass it with a 90 percentile. Once you're done with one, you're going to do a second one. If you cannot pass 2 of these sets, and it doesn't matter which 2, with a 90 percentile, the chances of you passing the exam are going to be pretty slim. I'm just going to say that right up, right? It's just straight up, right? If you want to pass the exam, you need to pass 2 sets of these things with 90 percentile. One, the questions aren't going to be matching the exact exam, so you're going to get a lower score just because, right, of that. 2, you're going to be nervous because this is an exam, right? So you're going to be nervous. So just know also that, you know, that's why we're setting 90% for 2 sets, because you're probably going to score in the 800s, which is what we want. We want you to get above that. If you happen to score in the 900s because you're a genius, awesome. But in general rule of thumb, if you can't get past 2 of these sets of questions with a 90%, you're probably not ready for the exam. So just remember that. Okay. The other thing I want to show just from a logistical standpoint is why we love these exam questions so much. So let's say I'm going to pick, set 4 for an example. I'm going to wait. We're going to wait. John's site is not the, when you're here, it's not necessarily the fastest, right? Chris, go ahead and ask your question if you got one. It's perfect.
All right. So you said if we can't pass the Twitter test at 90%, are you saying like the first time around, or are you talking about like after we've reviewed the questions after
Oh,
the,
yeah.
at the second time around we
anytime.
can get 90%, then we're golden. Okay.
In other words, if you train a bunch, you need to be training for 90%. If you can pass 2 of these exams at 90%, then you're ready to go. But if you take it cold right now and you get a 66%, then you're not ready. Right? It means you need to study more.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But you can train on that set till you get 90% and then train for the next set till you get 90%. You get 2 of them under your belt, you're ready to go. I should actually do a speed run where I just actually run through all 5 of them. I don't even know. I mean, I assume I would pass because I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I don't know if I would pass, right? Some of the questions throw you off. Okay, I was like, is Greg going to talk? I thought Greg was going to talk just for a second. Okay, so here's why we love these questions. One, first of all, just know you're not going to see this on the exam. So they're not going to tell you what category it is, right? So this is the one, by the way, that has the 33% attached to it. They're not going to tell you that on the exam, just so you're aware. Okay, so which of the following is the most cost-effective and scalable choice for object storage? Well, first of all, this should crack you up a little bit because just so you know, there's only one choice for object storage on AWS. They only have one service for this, right? So, and I'm not testing you yet, but I appreciate you all putting answers in. I love to see that. Don't worry, we're going to be doing that for the rest of the afternoon. S3 is really the option for object storage. There is no other option really. So the reason we love John is he's going to tell you why this is the right answer. Going to give you pictures if he's got them. And then he's going to tell you why EFS is wrong because this is an NFS storage solution. He's going to tell you why EBS is wrong because this is a volume storage solution for hard drives. He can tell you why gateway storage, the storage gateway is wrong because this is actually a virtual machine that runs on premise. It doesn't even run in the cloud, right? And he's going to tell you where he got it from the AWS documentation, including any official videos from AWS if they have them. And then he's going to check out these AWS cheat sheets. If you keep missing questions on storage comparisons or S3, he's got a cheat sheet for you, right? In addition, he's got his own custom created overview of these sections as well, if you want them. That's it. That's why we love Tutorials Dojo, is because his accuracy is super high. He's got a great set of presentations about how this approaches, and he constantly updates his courses, and you get them for 3 years if you pay $15 or less. So that's why we like him. Okay. All right. Any questions before we actually start like practicing? And remember, we are going to take a break in about an hour.
Yeah, I've taken a couple of the Tutorials Dojo review exams, and there were not like a lot, but a fair number of questions that went over services that we didn't cover in the course. So I guess I'm asking, should we expect that sort of thing on the exam? They were kind of esoteric. So yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I think Greg is probably sick of me saying this. He's not sick of me saying this. He's just like heard me say it a lot, right? Because I feel like I say this almost in every class. It's like, it's interesting because the class is associated with a certification, but the class actually doesn't cover the material for the certification. So it only covers about 60 or 80% of the material, which is why that ramp up guide that we looked at had 100 steps in it, and the class was only one of them, right? So Kendra, AWS, it probably doesn't say this enough to like convey the message, but the class is only going to give you about 60 or 80% of the material for the certification. And
Okay.
we wish that it covered all of it, but oddly enough, for almost every class, there's an exam readiness version that usually is an extra day that usually covers 100% of the material. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah, let's just roll with that.
Right,
So just so
thanks.
you know, that's why we have our simplified study guide. which will usually give you the extra 20%. And really the practice exam questions plus the extra little extra study will get you there.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, AWS kind of like lets that association go on. I don't think there's anything malicious in it. I think they just kind of like haven't dispelled it, right? I don't think they're trying to like hurt anybody. They're just like haven't been very clear about that. There's a lot going on over at AWS. Okay. All right, well, so I'm going to stop the recording and then record again. And now we're going to switch over to some exam questions. Anything I didn't cover? Any questions about anything as I'm stopping this thing?